After the recent election, I'm pleased to say Australia is under new management and once more open for business.
And for once, we have a government in this state that is prepared to actually reallocate teaching and financial resources to where the need is greatest.
We are moving to a much more effective, better targeted system of funding throughout Western Australia.
The old-fashioned way of doing unionism in Australia is gone. The circumstances that formed the trade union movement in Australia, they've gone forever. They went in the last 2 decades of the 20th century. And now that we're into this deep into this neoliberal age, the trade union movement really has to think through what it's doing. And what's happening here in Australia, a lot of people don't realise this, but the federal government now is committed to holding a conference of all state governments. It's going to be held later this year. And at that conference, plans will be laid down to sell every single stick of state-owned infrastructure in Australia. So every railway, every school, every hospital, every prison, everything is going to be up for sale. And all of the proceeds for that will be poured into building roads. And this is what the federal government calls renewing Australia's infrastructure. So the sort of neoliberal attacks we've seen on services in Western Australia up to date are nothing compared to what they're planning. And it also means that there's no longer any differentiation between federal attacks and state attacks. It's all one big program. So we have to really take this on as a union movement, and my union, the public sector union, has to take it up. So we need to be getting out to the community to explain to every sector of the community what this means. I think it was just last year in Chicago, the teachers' union went on strike for a wage rise and to defend their jobs against school closures. And the mayor of Chicago, who was their employer, was a dedicated neoliberal. He was totally committed to closing down schools and establishing private schools. And when the teachers began their struggle, there was no hope that they were going to win. And they just went out and battled, and they won. And they won because they did more than just fight for a wage rise. They went to the community and they showed that the school closures that were proposed were racist. And they also linked into very old traditions of urban community struggles in Chicago. And wherever there was a community group that was having a battle about any issue in Chicago, any union that was having a battle, the teachers turned up and showed them support. And through that, the teachers became the community leaders, and they became invulnerable. There was nothing the mayor could do to them, and they won. That's the sort of, in this era, that's the sort of strategic thinking that we need. And what's being done to defend workers' rights in Australia, I think that the trade union movement in Australia is hamstrung by its relationship with the ALP. It's going to be very difficult to save jobs in the near future. I think that in our union, I believe we're going to lose a lot of jobs before we can mount an effective fight back. And I think that we're going to have to help our members survive in the community. Tony Abbott got up in federal parliament just a few weeks ago and made a speech about reconciliation with the Aboriginal community. And he said wonderful things. He said every Aboriginal school-aged kid should be in school. Fantastic. Precisely at the same time as he was making that speech, his government was cutting the funding to the very workers who were going into Aboriginal communities to make sure that the kids got to school. Now, all over Western Australia, especially in regional areas, you'll find Aboriginal school-age kids on the streets every day now. And that's due to that cutback. So it doesn't matter whatever pious rubbish comes out of the mouths of these people. What they're talking about, what they're delivering is racism and sexism, and what they're delivering is a worse community for all of us. Now, the trade union movement can give a voice to all of that, and we can be the leaders in the fight back against that.
This is John van der Heijden reporting for Undercurrent.